Well, for the past month or so, we've been walking through these 10 commandments in this series that we're calling More Than Rules. And I hope by now you can feel it in your bones that these 10 words were never a checklist, never a moral report card. They are, in fact, a love letter. God tracing the shape of a life that's rooted in love. Love for the one who breathed you into being. And love for every person you share this fragile, beautiful world with. And today we come to the last one, the 10th, tucked at the end of the list like a summary. Or maybe like a hand laid gently on your shoulder. You shall not covet. More than a rule, it's an invitation to love. Now I begin with a confession here of all the 10 commandments. This is the one that finds me not because it's strange or ancient or far away, because it's so achingly, embarrassingly close. We don't talk too much about coveting in church. People don't generally stand up and say, "Oh, I confess I covet." It's too quiet for that. It lives in the glance, the comparison, the scroll, the sigh you don't let anyone hear. It lives in that thin, aching space between the life you have and the life you've decided that you deserve. And yet here it is, the final word of the 10 Commandments, pointing straight at the heart of everything. The Hebrew word, shamad, to desire, to crave, to set your heart upon something until it sets itself upon you. This is not admiring a friend's new car. This is deeper. It's hungrier. This is when the wanting curls itself around your identity. And when when what you don't have starts defining you more than what you do have. And the gap between your life and someone else becomes the lens through which you see everything, including yourself. And notice what God says here. God doesn't say, don't steal your neighbor's house. That's the 8th commandment. This one reaches further in. Don't even want it with that grasping, resentful want. Don't let your heart crouch over someone else's life and start auditing your own by comparison. Martin Luther saw it clearly. This commandment reaches deepest of all into the interior life that we live. You can govern your hands and bite your tongue, but the heart, it's a wild and wandering thing. Coveting is where the heart turns from God and bows to the idol of more, the root from which so many other sins grow. Before the theft, there's the wanting. Before the broken friendship, there's the comparison that planted the first bitter seed. This commandment comes last because it seems to be underneath all the others. Now hear me when I say this. We live in the most coveted, saturated culture probably in human history. Nearly every algorithm, every advertisement, every business model of our age is built on one devastating assumption. You are not enough, and you do not have enough. The whole engine runs on manufactured dissatisfaction. Make you feel the gap, then sell you something to fill it, and the gap never fills. It was never meant to. It's 11 o'clock at night, the house is quiet, and you're scrolling. The neighborhood's kitchen renovation, a colleague's promotion, a classmate's golden family on a beach, and something tightens. A small hollow place opens in your chest. Name it. That is coveting. An ancient commandment with a modern delivery system glowing in your hand in the dark. It's the housing market, where a generation watched homes become investment vehicles priced out of reach, and where righteous frustration can curdle into a silent ledger of who has and who doesn't. It's the workplace, the colleague who got the promotion you quietly worked toward for years. I have sat with so many good, faithful people who describe their darkest seasons as this quiet, shameful envy that they cannot shake, like an uninvited guest who won't leave. And it's our public life drenched in resentment. Whole movements built not on a vision, but on a grievance. When coveting goes collective, it gets loud, it gets dangerous. This commandment is not ancient history. It is the morning news. Now hold our two texts that we read this morning in the same breath. When the Pharisees asked Jesus which commandment is the greatest, he didn't hesitate. Love God with everything you have. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these two. Everything, including this one. Hear this clearly. Coveting is the quiet, systematic undoing of love. When I covet my neighbor's life, I stop seeing a person and I start seeing a measuring stick. And you cannot love a measuring stick. They stop being Sarah or Marcus or the family down the street. But they become a data point in the endless, exhausting comparison of my life to theirs. When I covet my neighbor's success, I begin to resent their good fortune. And resentment is love's opposite. You can smile at someone and resent them all at the same moment. Many of us know that. That combination of resentment and smiles from the inside. But you cannot celebrate them genuinely or weep with them honestly. Something between you has been poisoned. And the deepest wound of all, when I covet, I am declaring, however unconsciously, that God has not given me enough. The author of every good gift we think has shortchanged us. And that's not merely ingratitude. That's a failure to love God. And we cannot fully love the one we don't trust. This is why the 10th commandment is not simply the end of a list. It's the interior condition that makes every other commandment possible or impossible. Coveting is the spiritual posture of scarcity, where love is the spiritual posture of abundance. And they cannot occupy the same heart at the same time. This is where our Lutheran understanding of the gospel has something so powerful to say. The answer to coveting is not trying harder to not want things. That's never worked, not once in the whole of history of the human heart. Willpower doesn't transform our desire. If I tell you not to think about a pink elephant, I know exactly what you're thinking about right now. We don't fix ourselves by self-improvement. We're transformed by grace, by encounter, by love received before any love is ever given. That is the heartbeat of the gospel itself. And so the antidote to coveting is gratitude, but not the forced performative kind. Someone recently told me we need to stop shoulding all over ourselves. And they're right. I should be more thankful. Just stacks guilt on top of longing. I mean, the gratitude that comes from actually encountering the love of God and being undone by it. The gratitude that is really just awe. The gratitude that whispers, I have been known, fully known, and I've been loved anyway. When you've truly rested in that love, when you have sat with the staggering reality that the God of the universe knows your name, has claimed you as loved, has walked through death itself to tell you that you are not alone, something happens to the wanting. Now, it doesn't vanish overnight, but it does loosen its grip. The fist opens finger by finger. I've seen it happen with people in this congregation, walking through devastating loss and coming out the other side, less grasping, not more. Discovering, much to their astonishment, that they still held what mattered most. That they understood that they were already enough in the sight of God. And that is not resignation. That is what resurrection looks like in an ordinary life. There's a line in Paul's letter to the Romans that I don't want to let go of. Rejoice with those who rejoice and weep with those who weep. Now that sounds simple, but I think it's far easier, at least for me, to weep with those who weep than it is to purely rejoice with those who rejoice. That's one of the hardest things the heart ever learns. Because someone in your office or in the pew next to you receives the very thing you've been praying for, aching after, and they get it and you don't. That's one of the greatest spiritual tests of our ordinary lives. Part of us can offer real congratulations. And part of me, quietly is a bit devastated. Both can be true at once. And only God sees the whole of it. But imagine a community that learns this, where someone's good news lands and we see it as actually our good news. Where a neighbor's flourishing is not a verdict on our scarcity, but a glimpse of what God is doing in their world. That's what it means to love your neighbor as yourself. Not pretending a happiness you don't feel, but doing the slow, grace-soaked work of letting other people's joy become your joy too. And none of us builds that alone. It's the fruit of being rooted in a love larger than ourselves. Let's take this one step further. If coveting is the quiet undoing of love, let me show you its exact opposite. Not in theory, but in two stories. An 11-year-old girl lived with her grandmother. School wasn't easy. She'd been labeled different. Her mother was not a reliable presence, and her father, a man she only vaguely knew, whom she had not seen in years, had recently been killed. Now, her school celebrated the Day of the Dead, and they built these small altars to honor the deceased with sugar skulls and marigolds and favorite foods, a Mexican tradition. What does it mean, she asked a volunteer at her school. It's a window of time when our loved ones who've died can come back, and we leave them gifts. And the girl paused. You mean like my dad? Yes, the woman answered, like your dad. And she said, I get to keep his wallet, her gladness unreserved. And I'm keeping the $60 that was in it. A pause. Because he touched it. Because he touched it. Sit with that for a moment. Coveting looks at $60 and starts calculating what it could buy, what everyone else's wallet holds. This little girl, who by every worldly measure had almost nothing, saw something no algorithm can price. She didn't think, why isn't there $100 in there? No, for her, love was made touchable. She wasn't keeping money, she was keeping a blessing. My translation, I'm keeping it because he touched it, he blessed it. You know, sometimes we need stories as much, if not more, than we need food to stay alive. Stories that teach us to see with our heart. Here's a second. Henry Nouwen, one of the great teachers of the heart, a Catholic priest, spent his vital years at L'Arche, a community shared with adults with disabilities. A wonderful woman there named Janet came to him one day. Henry, she asked, can you bless me? And he did what we pastors do. We traced a little cross on her forehead. No, Janet said, it doesn't work. That's not what I mean. I want to be blessed. After worship service, soon after, Janet walked up, put her head against Nouwen's chest, and Nouwen wrapped his arms around her, looked right into her eyes and said, blessed are you, Janet. Do you know how much we love you? Do you know how important you are? Do you know what a good woman you are? She smiled. She said, yes, 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 I know. And he watched the life come right back into her, just flow into her, because she remembered that she was loved and that she was blessed. And the moment she sat down, others began lining up. I want that kind of blessing too. Don't we all? Don't we all want that kind of blessing? To just simply know that we're loved and that we're enough. Now hold those stories against everything we've said this morning. Coveting is the ache of looking at your neighbor's life and feeling the gap. And blessing is looking into your neighbor's eyes and knowing that their joy can be your joy. Coveting says, what you have diminishes me. Blessing says, who you are delights me. Coveting audits, blessing beholds. And here's the holy economics of it all. Everything coveting wants is scarce. One promotion, one house, someone else's life. But blessing multiplies the instant you give it away. Nobody that Nouwen was blessing had less because Janet was blessed. Everybody wanted in, and they noticed the blessing isn't just reserved for one person. It's not reserved for people whose lives are whole. That little girl's life, whose dad died, was fractured in nearly every direction. Janet, the woman that now and blessed, carried burdens most of us will never know. And yet we pass blessing to one another from splintered, imperfect selves. It's hiding in our word salvation, from the Latin salve, a balm spread over a wound. In a world of division and loneliness, we so easily miss one another. We miss the chances to see, to hear, to touch, to bless. But when we do see it, even when we're broken, especially then, it is the very kiss of God. And a heart busy blessing has no room left to covet. Grace wins, hope wins, compassion wins. All series long, we've said it. These are more than rules. And it's never been more true than today. You shall not covet. It's not God monitoring your want list. It is God who knows the human heart better than we ever will, pointing at the thing that will hollow out our very soul if we let it. It is a warning, yes, but a warning spoken through tears, born entirely out of love, because God knows that a heart consumed with more cannot rest, cannot receive, cannot love freely. A heart that starves at a full table. And so the commandment is also an invitation to wake up tomorrow and receive our life as a gift instead of auditing it as a score. To trade the auditing heart for the blessing heart. To let the love of God so fill us that the gap between what we have and what someone else has simply stops being the most important thing in the room. We are, all of us, people in process. None of us will walk out of here today and never feel envy again. But we're also people of resurrection. People who have staked our lives on the claim that love wins, that grace is real, and that the God who commands us to love is the very God who empowers us to love. So here's my commitment, and I invite you, I plead with you to make it yours. I'm committed to loving God with everything I have, my heart, my attention, my trust, and refusing to let the idol of more sit on the throne that belongs to God alone. I am committed to loving my neighbor genuinely, freely, never as a measuring stick, and to the slow, holy work of celebrating their lives instead of quietly resenting them. I am committed to practicing gratitude, not as spiritual performance, but as a daily act of resistance against a culture that profits from my dissatisfaction. And I'm committed to blessing. So looking a struggling soul in the eyes and saying out loud, you are loved, you are important, you are good. And to receive that blessing when it comes to me, even from splintered and imperfect hands. And when I fail, and I will fail, I'm committed to returning again and again to the grace that started all of this. The grace that says you're already loved. You already hold what matters most. And you've never been alone. Amen.